Hello and welcome to June's Opening the Box. My name is Catherine Kuntz. I am the Richardson-Sloane Special Collections Supervisor of the Davenport Public Library. In today's presentation, we'll share information about a specific collection in our archives, which is called the Ament Inc. Collection of Early Scott County, Iowa Surveys and Plats. If you're interested in materials housed at the Richardson-Sloane Special Collection Center, we invite you to join us the first Friday of every month to learn about collections we have, how to access them, what types of research they support, and much more. So with that, we'll jump into the collection. So the topics that we'll be covering today in today's presentation are a brief collection overview, discussing who the collectors are, what did they collect, the historical context of the collection, and how to access and use the collection. So some basics, just to get you more familiar with what the collection has in it and why we have it. So the collection overview, this collection includes approximately 100 items. So those include published Scott County atlases, land abstracts, hand-drawn surveys of parcels and sections of lands, plat maps, indexes, and much more. So these materials came to us in around 2010. Was actually the first donation that we've received that year. The dates that are covered, which I think they might be a little bit earlier based on some of the documentation. So from 1860 to around 2000. And this collection was received with several inventories. So what is really interesting about this collection is that it did come with several inventories created by the people who collected the materials. And so that was pretty helpful for us to go through and make sure that we had the entire collection when it was donated and that nothing was missing. So we did, as a staff, we verified this. And then we also did, we noticed that as going through these inventories, we did notice that several items were not on any of the listings. So we created our own listing to make sure that the collection was even more accessible through this type of identification. And so right now, we'll get into this a little bit later, but it does have several inventories that we can provide people who have interest in using this collection with to access it. So who are the collectors? So as the title of the collection implies, it was Ament Inc. So they worked on a number of projects across the Quad Cities and the Midwest region. So they were originally named Ament Engineering. It was founded in 1983 by Michael E. Ament, a professional engineer, and the headquarters were in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It specialized in traffic and civil engineering until it merged with a long-established engineering associates in 1993 to form Ament Engineering Associates, Inc. Mechanical and electrical engineering were added during this merger, positioning Ament as a source for total project solutions for its clients. In 1999, Ament added more expanded services by adding architectural surveying and became Ament Inc. So Ament then expanded its services into Chicago area in November of 2009 with the addition of Peter F. Olson and Associates Inc. And they were an experienced civil engineering firm specializing in family entertainment center designs. And all this information is actually coming to us from a really great resource, the Internet Archive in the Wayback Machine. But to continue on with their history, so in around 2014, their name also evolved again from Ament Inc. To Ament Design. And so that became an all-encompassing design firm for its customers. And from their website in 2015, it's that we have been instrumental in the design of many notable public improvement projects and private developments in the Midwest. These projects include educational facilities, child care centers, municipal buildings, corridor studies, roadway extensions, water storage and distribution, residential subdivisions, industrial complexes, recreational trails, and municipal engineering. So at that time, they were celebrating 30 years of service, and they wanted to highlight their mission that Ament Design is your trusted resource driven to provide remarkable service and innovative solutions to achieve superior results. So they really took great pride in this, and they highlighted their experienced staff of professional engineers and technical designers who offered a whole suite of services, including transportation, civil, structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical, and water/wastewater services from offices in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Moline, Illinois. So a little bit closer to the Quad Cities they got with Moline. Ament also provides land surveying, right-of-way acquisition, and construction administration services. So it serves their clients who primarily represent state and local governments, institutions, and industry. And they extolled their other virtues of being modern and fully automated offices, including computer-aided design and drafting. So CAD technology allowed them to swiftly evaluate multiple design alternatives for their clients and cost-effective solutions. They also helped, this also helped manage every phase of the project, including design, planning, construction, administration, and job cost control. And the firm also had licensed professional engineers for Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, and Wisconsin. But just recently in 2020, actually October of 2020, there was an article in the newspaper that said Willett Hoffman and Associates Inc. acquired Ament Design. So they are no longer existing by itself, but they have merged with another company. And so this company, actually, their history dates back to 1935. And they are also located in this area as well, and they have many other locations that they can help with different engineering and architectural needs of this Midwest region. So as I mentioned before, most of this information was found using past websites for Ament, and they are found in captures that were taken by the Wayback Machine, created as part of the Internet Archive. And this is a really great resource if you're struggling to find like newspaper articles and things like that on materials. And if they're more modern companies, the Wayback Machine is a really nice one because it does try and crawl the web and grab more of that information on there. And so it doesn't always capture all pages, and it depends on the web design of the whatever website at that given time. So it's a little bit, it's not as flexible, but if you can get to those pages that they have crawled, it's really nice. And you can find more information out about people and businesses and places. And so these individuals who were made up this organization collected these materials. So their staff members, their assistants who helped draft and do the planning. So these people would be wanting these materials for their work. So we just were really thrilled because we saw some of these fun articles on the in our collection. So we found local newspaper articles from the Quad City Times and the Gazette of Cedar Rapids. And mostly they are announcements of various activities of the business. Some of the ones that we did not include pertain to minute records of city council minutes and other businesses minutes that are published in the newspaper about jobs and projects that they were bidding or were awarded. And so we didn't include copies of all those because we would love you guys to come in and do your own research and then find out more for yourself too. But these are just a couple highlights. So there's a job announcement. There's some announcements about merging. So Ament Engineering acquires Rose Anderson, a smaller professional land surveyors in Moline. So that's must be why they got the second location in Moline. Then other announcements about new hires, about them moving their quarters. And then lastly, the article on the far left of the screen is about Willett Hoffman acquiring Ament Design. So we are hoping that the newspaper may have done, we were hoping that the newspaper may have done a history of the company when we were searching initially on one of its anniversaries or mergers, because sometimes in our local papers, we are able to find a detailed business history in this way. So they might have interviewed president or vice president or a PR person at the company and found out their history and I wanted to highlight a local business. I was unable to find anything specifically about that, but we have found those types of things in the past. So if you are interested in local businesses and how they kind of got developed and how they changed, or if you wanted to see their history, that's a nice place to start is the newspapers. But we'll go on. So what did they collect? So in just a brief summary is listed on the screen. So from our records, the collection lists a number of materials that record the built environment, which would help them in developing drawings and plans for transportation, civil, structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical, and wastewater services in this area. So most of them are pertaining to Scott County or Davenport. So the materials that they specifically donated to us were not probably the entire collection of plats and surveys and atlases that they had in their collection, but the ones that were specifically about this region in this county. So that's within our collection scope. The materials date to when these environments were first developed. And so it's a really interesting historical study in itself, especially with the land abstracts and things like that, because it kind of traces the history of the land and how it was used and who owned it. In a document found in the collection, it was a statement actually written by William Deagan, who acquired survey records during his years from 1928 to 1993 of cadastral surveying. So this is of a map or survey showing the extent, value, and ownership of land, especially for taxation. So this was kind of his main line of business, was this cadastral surveying, and through his own experience and then experience of the following individuals. So these were sources that these gentlemen would have used or created during their work life. So they were created by the following surveyors: Thomas Murray, who was a county surveyor and also city engineer. He worked from approximately 1860 to 1910. Alan Benode, he was a private surveyor, and he worked from 1910 to 1948. He was also civil engineer from 1915 to city engineer from 1915 to 1918. James A. Ryan, who was a private surveyor from 1910 to 1948. Philip F. Deagan, assistant county Scott County engineer from 1925 to 1941, and then William J. Deagan, who was a private surveyor from 1948 to 1993. And so all these gentlemen really helped collect these materials, and then others that aren't necessarily represented here that worked for the company as well. So we will just be going through and highlighting some materials that we found interesting in the collection, but we invite anyone interested in coming and looking at the collection to come in and we can pull it out for you. So the first set of materials that we wanted to cover were related to the Davenport, Rock Island and Northwestern Railroad Company. This railroad company was founded in 1884. Their final year of operation was in 1995, and it was dissolved. So it was no longer a functioning railroad company. This line ran around 48 miles of terminal and industrial trackage in Bettendorf and Davenport areas. The company was launched originally under the name of Davenport and Rock Island Railway and Bridge Company. 5 decades and 2 names later, they merged with emerged from the Depression with the name DRI and NW. And so the Davenport, Rock Island and Northwestern Railroad. For many years, ownership of the line was split between the Burlington route and Milwaukee Road. The dry line nickname, as a reference to their dry reporting marks, is in reference of that. After the 1980 collapse of the Rock Island, the railroad took over Rock Island's switching lines in that area. The company was dissolved in the summer of 1995, and the trackage split up between the parents, CP Rail and BNSF. And so this was just one of a really influential railroad company in this area. We have many postcards about it of people picnicking near the railroad, things like that. But these materials actually talk about the land that was involved in and what it covered. And so there's lots of handwritten notes. There's plats and surveys that they drew and used. Some of them look like government land office documents, typed up summaries of information, and just more information about the different tracks and who owned it and all those types of information, all that type of information. Then we have some legal documents. So there's an easement from the state of Iowa and Scott County. So it's just talking about what they can legally do and the easement of right of way. So we have all these, like all the legal documents going along with their work or that would be valuable for their work at Ament Inc. And then we also have some photocopies of land tracts as well. So these are very dark documents on the left, or on the, yes, left. And so it's very shaded on the one part. And so they're interesting documents to read and look through if you're interested in the development of land And then there's also really nice big maps that were done of the area. So this map was actually done by the War Department, the Corps of Engineers, and the U.S. Army. And so this is of Quad Cities Tank Arsenal. So near Bettendorf, there's a tract of land that they wrote about and tried to get more information about on this map. Then we have a little bit more information about various aspects relating to the railroad from the city clerk of Bettendorf, and about ordinances for the railroad, and some letters pertaining to are involved. A book that talks about a survey book that they did to are involved, so they so you can see where the roads are, where the railroad tracks are, their drawings and their handwritten notes to try and establish new rail lines, or if they need to repair things, and all that type of information can be found in these documents. There's some more examples of materials relating to the railroad company. And then these ones are big survey books that are just all handwritten and drawn. So they went out and they surveyed the land and they documented what the land looked like at that time. Then we have government land office surveys and notes. So these are copies originally from record books at the courthouse. So these maps and books pertain to the 24 sections in each of the 15 townships of Scott County in general. So these materials are called GLO, G-L-O, and it also can stand for General Land Office. And this was an independent agency of the United States government responsible for public domain lands in the United States. It was created in 1812 to take over the functions previously conducted by the United States Department of Treasury, starting with the passage of the Land Ordinance in 1785. It created the public land survey system. The Treasury Department had already overseen the survey of the Northwest Territory, including what is now known as the state of Ohio. Placed under the Department of Interior when the department was formed in 1849, it merged with the United States Grazing Service, which was established in 1934, to become the Bureau of Land Management on July 16th, 1946. So the Bureau of Land Management map, they depict the public domain land surveyed and platted under the auspices of GLO to facilitate the sale of those lands. So the General Land Office, or the Government Land Office, oversaw the surveying, platting, and sale of public lands in the Western United States and administered the Homestead Act and the Preemption Act in disposal of public lands. The frantic pace of land sales in the 19th century American West led to the idiomatic expression land office business, meaning the thriving or high volume trade. So this is really important because we are one of those states that would be affected by the Homestead Act and the Preemption Act. And so this is just more information about the history of the land and what it means for people who are interested in it. And so this is just one of the binders that has information that they copied down. And so they would use this to track the ownership of the land and get more information about different parcels. Then we have an index to plats and some information on Maple Island. So Many changes have taken place in Davenport since 1868, when its population was already nearing 2,000 souls. One curious feature on is Maple Island. It had an interesting history. So it is just off the shore of City Cemetery near the foot of Division. Many folks might not be aware of it. But they used it as a dump. They used it as a recreational area because there was a land bar that could access it, so people went on it. And it was in the newspapers quite frequently in the early or the late 1800s, early 1900s. So there's information about that on the side. So some land title of abstract and things like that for the land. And then we also have that index to plats. So this is just one of many indexes. So we have bound volumes of them. But these are plats that would have been in the recorder's office in the Scott County Courthouse. So we do have some copies of plats in our collection. And then there are copies of plats in this collection as well, specifically. So this would be helpful for anyone wishing to access those materials. So Maple Island, some more documents about this. So this is a title abstract. So title abstracts are really interesting. They do share the provenance or the ownership history of a parcel of land, who it was purchased by, when it was purchased, things like that nature, if it changed in size, if it grew, and things like that. So there's lots of great notes and information on here. And then we have some other little guides and information. So some handwritten notes, some typed up stuff, in different sections of the land information. Then we have some more handwritten notes about the different parcels of land, but then we do have a really interesting document that's talking about street name changes. So there was an ordinance, I believe in 1919, and around that time, and there's been other street name changes as well. But this is a description of what street names were changed into what, and kind of for what reason. So this is a really interesting document. We do have other resources in our collection that pertain to this topic, but this one's right in this space. And so then we also have a list of all the street name changes. So if you live on one of these streets and you're like, oh, maybe my street name changed at some point in history, we have a document. So this would also be helpful for surveyors who are doing all this work, what street they're talking about and what its name is. And so then you can see also the ordinance for changing and establishing names of certain streets from the city of Davenport. So this is the specific ordinance that talks about street name changes. Then we do have materials pertaining to those specific surveyors that I listed above before, a couple slides before. And so these materials are about Philip Deagan. And so he was appointed as assistant county engineer in 1938. He died at age 81. He was a civil engineer and land surveyor in Virginia Beach and then formerly Scott County. And he retired in 1964. He married Eva Brennan in 1935 in Davenport. So these are just materials that he had worked on or was a part of during his time in the business. So, and this was a copy of the document that I referenced before. So it's really nice when collections have this type of information for you, because it does help, because you're not always talking with the specific creator or the collector of a collection when it's donated. So having these documents and why they collected it or what's their purpose, it's nice to have that information to glean a little bit more of why this collection is existing. So these are, he did a lot of survey plats from 1936 to 1942. And he has a number of plat books. This one that we're looking at is plat book number 5. And it also has information from the United States government land acquisition plats pool number 16. And so you can see the different types of documents and drafts and surveys of the different sections of land in Scott County, Iowa. Then there's some more typed up information. So you do see some of the ink has bled, and so it's really purpley around it and shaded. And so this is the kind of vinyl-y feeling paper that draftsmen use to make to plat in architectural drawings. And so these are just different sections of town that they documented. It also shows subdivision. So you can see Mitchell's second edition, Sam Hirsch's edition, Green's edition. So different sections of town that were added to the original township of Davenport. Then we have Thomas Murray. He and his books on road surveys and throughout Scott County. And he also does have city surveys for the various towns listed there. And so we have a nice listing of these books and what they contain on this first page. And there's also a miscellaneous notes section. So he tries to give some more information to his work. So Thomas Murray, he was a city engineer. He was a 42-year official in the city of Davenport. According to an article published in the Daily Times, a local Davenport newspaper, on May 24th, 1910, Mr. Murray had charge of the paving of practically every street in the city. He was the engineer in charge of the entire sewer system that had been built in the city to that date, and had surveyed practically every lot within its confines in Davenport as it was laid out at that time. He was born to Charles and Barbara Murray in Dumfries, Shire, Scotland in 1845. They arrived here in the United States in July of 1856. They actually purchased a family farm that was about 2 miles north of the orphan's home, so Annie Wittenmeyer complex today, right across from Oakdale Cemetery. And unfortunately, he died quite suddenly in 1910. So his good work for the city halted at that time. And so they wrote up a number of very nice articles about him in the newspaper. So I encourage anyone who's interested in this gentleman who helped shape our city to come look at these survey books and check them out in the newspapers. And so there's just more documentation that he created. And so he was meticulous in his notes. And so it's a really neat resource for us at the library. Then we do have some road plat books. So similar to what Mr. Murray created, we do have one specific to certain roadways. So this one is referencing the Kimberly Road from 1936. It is book 4. So it was tied together with plastic strips. It has handwritten on there, Highway Kimberly Road, part of US Route number 6. The final plat records from 1936, tracings and photostats of original highway deeds. And so this helps us kind of understand the beginnings of a major roadway in Davenport. So we do have other original plans for roads for state and primary roads and other roads throughout Scott County and Muscatine County as well. And so this will just give you more information about the development of these roadways. And then we do have subdivision and addition record books. So these are pertaining to specific subdivisions within the city of Davenport. So this one is the Mississippi Heights edition, and there's an index. And then there's lovely construction claim vouchers for different things, and then also handwritten drawings and notes. So this collection does contain numerous field survey notebooks and plats relating to various private individuals and companies. So this is another interesting find. So if you're interested in finding out information about your homes, your businesses, and the lands that they are on, using this collection, we do have an index for their, we have several card boxes that they use to index the materials. And so we can help you use those and see if your business or organization was listed at their address. So we do have books of plats. So they're just called Plat Books and then a number. So this one is Plat Book 18. This collection contains 14 official plat books giving survey data, section corner descriptions, and reference ties to section corners in the 24 sections of the 14 townships. And so these resources are really valuable because they have the drawings and handwritten indexes and a lot of typed material and handwritten information. So if you're interested in any of these, I encourage you to come down and look at them so you can see the different various streets, Rockingham and Fillmore, and then 3rd Street and 2nd, and then plots of land. Then we have little subdivisions and the outliers of that, of McClellan Boulevard, handwritten information about the block in addition, and remarks about the land, and then information about the Sunnymead edition in the city of Davenport. Then we just have some more information, just images from the plat book that we pulled. So it's all really interesting. So the one, there's a plat survey for Outlot 1, Grandview edition. It's by Belmont Street and Telegraph Road, and then Cedar Street and Hill Street. So if you live in that area, this one would be a really fun area or document to look at. Then there's lots that are described here along Pershing Avenue, and then specific other sections. George H. Fredericks, a plat survey for that gentleman, and it was done in 1931. So they range in dates and years, but it's all really beneficial information if you're interested in finding out more. Then we have some more examples from this book. It was quite large. It was about 1 to 2 inches in, probably 2 to 3 inches in thickness, and it was all bound together, so you can see that along the left hand side of the book it was bound. But it's a really interesting book, so I encourage folks to come in and look at it. Then we have surveys. So this collection is full of surveys, but these ones are ones that are done by different people and have lots of different fun notes on them. They sometimes are printed, they're sometimes typed. And so they're for different individuals as well. But this one is a survey particularly of, and this was done in 1930. So for a specific purpose, presuming. So it's a really interesting information available in it. Then we have, so these I mentioned a little bit earlier, so they are relating to various collections and within this collection. So sometimes collections are collections of collections like this one. So there's a number of different individuals creating the materials or collecting the materials, and then they get formed into one big one, so that you have to kind of discern what is what and who, how they're all connected. And so these are great resources. I believe we do have a couple of listings typed up, but we can certainly help you find out information from these collections if you are interested. We also have just another picture of more of the collection. So there are large atlas books and things like that in the collection as well. This is a blow up of the one. I think it's similar to the other document that I showed of the city of Bettendorf from the War Department Corps of Engineers. And this is the Quad Cities tank arsenal. So this is another kind of look at that area along State Street in Bettendorf. So you can see the different additions and outlots and things like that. So it's a really neat document. And then some historical context for the collection. So this collection contains various information about people, places, and organizations, including businesses and industry. These materials are rooted in historical context. Rooted in historical context shows us how the city grew and the decisions that were made by land surveyors and city administration and engineers that helped develop the cities that they're about. So they used all these historical documents to help them shape and grow the cities. And then they added to them. So they documented what they did and added to the history of this area and the record of it. So how to use and access and use the collection. So you can look for information about the collection on our archive and manuscripts catalog. So you can just go to archives.davenportlibrary.com and type in Ament Inc. And also the collection was donated in 2010. And it was the first collection donated of that year. So if you also typed in 2010-01, you should also be able to find it. And then if you are, if you forgot all that, and you're just wanting to see what types of resources that we have at the Richardson-Sloane Special Collection Center, and you're a big fan of WorldCat, which is an OCLC product that searches multiple libraries records, bibliographic records. Well, there's one for archives. So it's called Archive Grid. And so it's just researchworks.oclc.org/archive grid. And you can search globally for archive and manuscript collections that are housed at local institutions. So we are on there. So this is just a little map view of what you can see on there. And then it will send you to our archive space. So you can browse through that when you're ready. And then we also do have inventories created by library staff and the people who created the materials. You're more than welcome to look at those as well. We'll print you off copies and then help you find out which materials you want to look at. So one important thing that as we talk about collections and how we access them, we want to note about the process for intellectual control and physical control. So intellectual control is the finding aid, so the description of the materials, knowing what's in the collection to help provide access to the public, those types of things. So like the bibliographic record or the book catalog for volumes of books. That's the same thing for the finding aid or the research guides in our collections. And then physical control is physically rehousing the materials. Some of the materials have been rehoused, some of them are still in tubes, but that's just dependent on the collection and when it arrives in our institution. And there's various considerations when processing a collection and to what length you go. But it's really interesting work. And if you ever have any questions, we would love to talk to you about them and show you collections that might be of interest to you. And so how to use them or what to use them for. So you'll want to maybe consider using them for land research or structure research. So include researching buildings, businesses, schools, residents, etc. Researching about individuals. So if you wanted to see if your great-great-grandfather was a businessman and where his business was and what, if there were any changes to it or residences, things like that, where people ended up and what happened to their land that they owned. Land development research. So we also, I've had researchers in looking at materials on how a particular section of town was developed and why, for specific purposes of seeing like the economic impact of it, the social, political impacts of those things as well. So why was this land developed in this one way? So I came from an area where there was a large flood, and so that changed the land development of that particular section of town because they created a greenway, made sure that no one could have houses there in case this ever happened again. So there's lots of different aspects that you can research using this collection. Thank you so much for attending Opening the Box today. If you have any questions, please contact us at by visiting us in person, by emailing us, by telephoning us. You can also check out our archive and manuscript catalog at archives.davenportlibrary.com. You can check out any images that we have digitized on our Upper Mississippi Valley Digital Image Archive. That's just umvphotoarchive.org. It is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, so we encourage folks to go check that out, and there's always new stuff added. And then you can also, if you're interested, you can follow us on Instagram at Davenport Special Collections, on Facebook at Davenport Library SC, and then we also write weekly blogs. So we encourage folks to read those, and then we also do have a e-newsletter that comes out by quarterly, and so feel free to sign up for that when you go visit our blog. But thank you so much, and please join us next time.